a chance in hell.
Wow, let there be light.
Oh, on your finger?
No, not on this.
Oh.
Is this like a trust fall?
Oh. It just gets sexier and sexier. Jump in this thing and see what it'll do.
Ready to rock this, bro?
Oh, hell yeah. Welcome to part 5 of the Daytona build. Well, I don't know. This will be a Daytona, but to make the Irwindale race, I think we're just going to have to run it as a 500 and not the Daytona, because literally it's down to single-digit days to have this thing done by. So it's kind of in a rush and getting expensive. And speaking of expensive, holy crap, have you guys bought a bell housing lately? So I researched it, found that QuickTime had a bell housing that would work with the transmission I have. Okay, the old part number was $475. Discontinued. The pretty much exact same thing, but with a new part number, $1,200 freaking dollars. I needed it. I mean, wow. Bell housings are freaking expensive. Luckily, a buddy of mine, John Huff, he helped me out with the bell housing, so I was greatly appreciative on that, because wow. Another wow is freaking clutches. So this was the flywheel from the twin disc clutch that I had in the Lemonator. You know, here's the pressure plate from the twin disc, and I was just going to try and get new discs to match up with my GM input shaft. So the new transmission I'm running, it's a GM, the transmission has a GM type input shaft, which is 1.1/8" 26 spline shaft. Could not use the discs that came with the Mopar twin disc clutch, plus the twin disc clutch was illegal anyway, and it's just more weight. Don't need to be spinning more mass behind the engine. Aluminum flywheels are illegal. And I was having to research, you know, getting the money for a pressure plate and a flywheel, or pressure plate and a clutch. I'm like, holy crap, man. And well, all of a sudden the light bulb in my head went off, and I'm like, wait, my dad's old race car, it had that same type transmission behind it, or behind the engine. And I'm like, I know I have that flywheel clutch set up somewhere. So this is an old Ram clutch, and oh no, this is the GM. Yeah, okay. That is the flywheel that came off of my dad's race car, which was a small block Chevy. This is the flywheel for the 340. Well, I found that the GM clutch disc and the GM pressure plate will bolt to my Mopar flywheel. So I was just like, cha-ching, 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 cha-ching. I just saved like $600. Thanks, Dad. So I get to use that pressure plate and clutch, or pressure plate and clutch disc on my Charger temporary 500. All right, more things have showed up. I mean, there's a lot of things that's got to happen. One is, okay, there is a seal. This seal right here is supposed to go over the axle shaft, and that's what keeps the differential fluid from entering the axle bearings. Oddly enough, when you order an entire axle kit, like in the whole kit, it comes with the inner hub seal, but it does not come with this. Now, if you go cheaper and you only order the hub kit, it comes with this. Makes no sense. So not realizing that, I had to order these seals. So now I need to take the hubs back off, or not hubs, but the drive plate back off, so I can put my seals on. Okay, another thing, my steering universal. That is for a GM steering box. This is the universal that's going to go to this guy. So So I need to cut that one off of there, weld this one onto there, so then I will have steering action. I gotta put my idler arm, my drag link, my pitman, which we're just going to rob an idler arm and pitman arm off of some crap I got out back. That's still good. We're just gonna use it, trying to save monies here, because my pockets is empty. They're getting low. The engine. I'm waiting on my freaking oil pan. Where is my oil pan? I need an oil pan so that way I can stuff this engine in the car. I can't even mock it. Actually, you know what? I might be able to, yeah. Okay, I think we're gonna try and get the engine in the car with that oil pan just to mock it up, but that oil pan will not work with the factory drag link. The drag link is about right here. Well, that oil pan goes all the way back to here, so it's completely in the way of the drag link. Kind of need to steer. Okay, I just went to a buddy's house and picked up some 340 motor mounts and solid motor plates, or motor biscuits. So we can get this engine off of there. I can get my bell housing bolted to it. I can get my transmission bolted to it. We can mock up everything, get the shifter located in place where it needs to be, and make some freaking progress. Got all that? Good. Man, yesterday was not a super productive day on the car, but it's one of those days that had to happen where you run around town and pick up parts. And well, I went to my buddy's local speed shop, which is SoCal Speed Shop here in Vegas, and they hooked me up with, you know, the fuel pump I need, fittings, valve stems for the new wheels I got, power steering pressure hose, the remote oil filter adapter I need, and oh, you know what? I need to give a shout out to Mr. Tall John out there in 10OC. So he's another one of my carburetor guru buddies, and in the rules you have to run a 2-barrel, but if you're running a limousine like I am, which is 117-inch wheelbase compared to like the 108 that Camaros run, you are allowed to run a 4-barrel, and it's a 600 CFM specific part number 4-barrel that they allow you to run. Well, Mr. Tall John had built me one of them carburetors, but he modified it to where it's a dual feed instead of the single feed like it originally was. He's got the adjustable metering blocks on it, and he went ahead and tuned it up and got that thing race ready for me. And you can see his YouTube channel. It's Tall John's Fun Shop, which he's got a lot of good tuning tech tips and engine tech tips and all that stuff on there. So go ahead and give Tall John's Fun Shop a like and a follow just for helping me out on the stockpile. And then I also picked up motor mounts for this thing here from another buddy way across town. I didn't have any small block motor mount brackets or the actual motor mounts, so picked up some of those from him, Doug Schneider. Yeah, not a whole lot happened on the car yesterday because I had to run errands, and then when I got back it was, you know, family time, but a lot of good parts showed up. You want to see this thing? We got a rear axle, but we got no shocks. And when I was racing ASA full time back in, I think it was 09 or 2010, I was fast. I won races. I got track records. I got poles. Actually, I got 3 poles in a row on that thing. And you know what kind of shocks I had on that truck? I'll show you that truck right here.
So get on your bed, motor scooter and ride. Up over to my place and stay all night. Yeah. The first thing in the morning we'll be feeling alright.
That truck had itself some pretty badass QA1 shocks on it. So guess who I called for some shocks on this guy? We need to get this guy in victory lane, and these is the hardware to do it with. Yep, my buddies at QA1 hooked me up with some shocks on this thing and the struts. So this is what I really wanted for the front end. When you run the factory style biscuit bushings, the actual lower control arm in the car can move forward and back, changing the caster, changing the bump steering. You don't want all that. I mean, as soon as you hit the brake pedal, the caster's changing, and the everything is changing because the lower control arm is walking back and forth in the car. This will make that rigid. It'll keep my caster and my bump steer more true, and it has a Heim joint on the front, so it is more solid, it is more rigid, and it's more of a tuning tool, which I like. I like tuning tools. The front shocks, I went with, this is more of a tie-down shock. So it's a 5 on compression, and it's a 12 on rebound. So I want it to, and you know, and my rights and my lefts, the shocks are the same. So I want to actually road race this thing too, and I don't want to have a bunch of money in shocks between circle track and road race and all that. And nowadays, a lot of guys kind of have more of a neutral shock setup between the right and the left. I mean, you have guys that are tying down the left rear, but I don't really want all that. We're going to kind of keep the shocks on this thing more basic and symmetrical, and go ahead and get these bad boys in the car. Wow, what a butter knife. Ooh, pretty. So do you remember my adjustable height shock tower back in episode 2? Well, I also have an adjustable shock mount. So not only can I adjust the height of my rear shock tower, but I can adjust the inset, the angle of the shock, as much as I want to. I made this guy. I'm cool like that. Alrighty fellers, let me break down my front suspension go-to for all my Mopars. First thing I do is I reinforce the lower control arm, because these things flex, they wobble, so you want to get rid of that. If you don't have these, there's several people that make them. I also sell these on junkerupgarage.com if you want to buy a set of these to reinforce your lower control arm. And then these guys, the Heim joint strut rods, the adjustable caster, and it keeps your control arm from going like this with the strut bushings. And then the QA1 upper control arms. Now granted, I don't have any on this car because all you guys done bought them all. QA1 is getting caught up on tubular upper control arms for the Mopars, and they didn't have any available at the moment, so I'm going to be running the stock upper control arms, so it's your fault. You guys didn't leave me an extra set. Another thing I do, now you don't need to do this, but I do, this is a ball joint lowering bracket. So the problem with the Mopars, at stock ride height, the lower control arm has a good geometrical angle to it. It's neutral, it's flat. When you lower your car, now all of a sudden your control arm is uphill towards the tire. So this is the tire, this is my elbow is the K-frame. When you lower a car, now you get that negative angle in it to where it's uphill towards the tire. You do not want that. It actually promotes body roll, because as G-forces hits that control arm, it tries to actually buckle the control arm more, you know, and so it creates body roll, and roll center wise, terrible. So what I do is I drop that lower ball joint an 1.5 inches, and this is just a bracket I came up with for this spindle. I don't foresee me using this spindle a lot in the future because they're not that easy to get a hold of. I think this is a 73, 74 Charger spindle. This is actually, the rotors are off of a 71C body, so they're super thickness for that extra stopping power. Actually, that extra thickness adds to the ventilation through the rotor to help cool it from that extra stopping power. Stock ride height, your lower control arm is good, but your upper control arm is completely foobarred. It is at a terrible angle, and it's downhill towards the tire. Do not want that. That is terrible. What happens is when you go into a corner, and this is all explained on, I have an older YouTube video talking about roll centers and geometry and stuff like that with Mopars. But so when you roll into the corner and that tire starts to compress, it actually cambers out before it starts to camber in. So it goes whoop, whoop. Terrible. Now, when you lower a car, your upper control arm angle is fixed. It's actually way better. But then your lower control arm is foobarred. So there's a give and take between stock ride height and lower ride height. This fixes both of them. So now we have the good upper control arm angle with the lowered car, and now we have the good lower control arm angle with the lowered car. And I want this thing to drag the ground. I want it to look like a Hoover vacuum once I get the Daytona nose on it. Plus, another bad thing with the Mopars, this guy right here, this hits the K-frame super early. Like, you could take the torsion bars out of the car and the K-frame will still have like a 2.5 to 3 inch ride height. I think it's about 2 inches actually. So that's 2 inches with no front springs in the car. Your car will, the frame rail will never hit the ground, and that's because these guys engage super early. Well, by dropping that ball joint, now you're pulling this farther away from the frame rail, and so you get more suspension travel with a lowered car. And plus, don't tell nobody this, but bump stops on your shocks are illegal in street stocks. You're not allowed to run bump springs, bump shocks, nothing like that. But with the Mopars, I can use this as a bump stop. I can make shims and shim this up to where I want, so that way it will load that left front tire at a specific ride height as much as I want. And so it can be used as a tuning tool. But if it engages way too early, you know, without this guy, then that is out the window. But now that I can drop that down and make shims to adjust the height of this, now it's a tuning tool. So all my circle track wizardry is coming out for you guys to take advantage of. That looks freaking cool. And you gotta see this too. Watch this. There's a reason I did this. So the valving on this shock was intended for a G-body, which this pivot point on the G-body is closer to the center. It's like almost in the middle of the control arm. And when you extend it out here, that valving actually becomes greater than it is actually rated at. I'll show you. See, there's like a generic like 1 to 10 rating on the shock valving. That's just kind of like your off-the-shelf stuff, which that's what this is off-the-shelf. But nowadays they know guys are running more rebound. So this is actually, well, this is a 10 really. It is a 5 on compression and a 10 on rebound. And I'm gonna run really soft torsion bars. And so I needed a little bit more compression to overcome the soft torsion bar. But this is the reason why I chose this shock to bring it farther out. My rebound has now multiplied. Watch this. I can compress it in really easy, but I mean, one hand compress it in like nothing. But when I stand on this control arm, watch how slow it comes out. I have to stand on the control arm to get it to come back out. It's still going, still going. Come on. All right. has so much rebound that I have to stand on it. That's going to work perfect on keeping my nose tucked to the ground around the track for all the aerodynamics. So I have hit a problem. These control arms were intended for stock ride height and really not trying to get a ton of, you know, positive camber. My ball joint is bound up. I actually cannot compress the suspension all the way because the pin is bound up in the ball joint. We're going to cut the control arm. We're going to level out the ball joint. So we're going to get this ball joint to where it's level, where it can gain more suspension travel and be within its realm of normality. You know what I'm talking about. And I think we're going to lengthen it an inch. I think we're going to cut a section out of this guy, and we're going to cut that in half, and we're going to weld that section in there to lengthen the control arm to get more positive camber. I need this sucker cambered out like, whew, at ride height, probably about 5 degrees. I want this thing to be like kapow on the left front. So that way when it goes into the corner and sucks in, I will still have a little bit of camber at ride height, or well, at dynamic height, which is in the middle of the corner. It has H-beam rods. It's got diamond dome pistons in it. It's a solid roller cam. It has the 4-barrel Cleveland heads. And this intake manifold is not the best for high horsepower, but considering it's going to be going in that Cobra, it'll be a good street manifold. How much power? So this is the AC Cobra that Jenny's 393 stroker motor is going to get plucked into, or dropped into. Pluck is the wrong term. See, maybe I need to go to school just to learn how to talk. It is another late day, but it's one of those days that kind of had to happen. Good news and sad news. So if you remember Jenny, that dirt modified, the old dirt modified, I mean, the thing was a dinosaur, old leaf spring A-mod car. So we had our fun with it. We raced it. We gave it one last hoorah. And then it came down to the point where it's like, okay, what are we going to do with this thing? It has a stout little killer stroker 383 Cleveland motor in it, or 393. Well, long story short, I was able to sell the engine out of it. And it's a good thing because need the monies for a racing car. Bad thing is the car is going to get parted out. So I'm going to end up bringing that Ford modified back home. We're going to yank the seat out of it. We're going to put it in our Charger stockpile. And as for the rest of the car, we're going to pillage parts from it, and it will probably meet its demise at the smusher. Anyways, good and bads to that. Another goods is, pow! This is an old NOS exhaust system that was supposedly petty kit car. I mean, look at the collectors. They're flat. The headers are flat so that way you have more ground clearance on a low riding race car, huh, Bolt? We want the sucker low. And when I saw that exhaust system, I was like, oh, that was sitting in like the rafters of like an old shop. And it was a friend of a friend, ended up snagging it. But look, we got the headers and we got the exhaust system. Now, I've never seen flanges that bolt pattern. So I don't know what those are for, but I do know it is the same port offset as the small block Mopar we got here, because check it out. See, this is my header gasket. Now there's enough meat on this flange to where I can re-drill it and just bolt these headers onto my engine without having to cut the flanges off, weld new flanges, no nothing. And that's what I'm going to do, and I'm going to do it right now. Flat 4 collector on my 340 small block. It won't go all the way on because the engine cradle's in the way, but the bolt pattern lines up and it will work. Now I just need to do the same thing the other side, then we can get the engine ready to drop in. Doing some pre-measurement for fitment on the engine and transmission, so I know how much to cut on the rest of the trans tunnel. I've got my transmission here, I've got my engine, I got the bell housing, and we need to see how far back is where. So from that bolt hole on the K-frame, which is right where Derek has his tape measure, is 51 inches from that bolt hole to my shifter mechanism. So, and it ends up being right there. So I know I need to cut more out of it, and I think that's going to be a really good spot for a shifter location too. So I have actually made the decision to pull the right front upper control arm off. You know, Virgil had shortened it, which is cool and all, but I don't really need that shortened anymore because of my ball joint drop bracket. And I don't know, with it being that short, its movement center is way too fast. Like it gains angle too fast. So we're going to slow that down by putting this on. This is an extra control arm I had. It's made by Performance Online. And the reason I have one is this thing was bought years ago. Well, it wasn't made right. It's no fit-toe. Like, that will not fit in there. So that is the problem. I'm gonna have to cut this gusset that they have here, widen the spread just so it'll go in there. And I've had this thing sitting on the shelf for probably 7-8 years. Might as well do something with it. When it comes down to crunch time, everything becomes a workbench. Just put weight here. My level of geniusness even amazes me sometimes. Look at this. Now this control arm has ball joint issues. Yep, I'm gonna have to cut this ball joint loose and then angle it down because it's a low rider. Up, Derek. This is like the Days of Thunder moment where the engine and transmission are dropping in. All right, down. Who would have ever thunk there would be fitment issues with a small block Mopar going into an original big block Mopar? Well, this has some oiling mods on it, and I was skeptical about that fitting, but I think we're gonna have to do something about it. I think we're gonna, well, for one, that part is into the freaking firewall where it actually, so that actually feeds the top end, so that's an additional feed for the lifters, all that, and it tees off of this. So I think we're going to have to eliminate this and then run this guy and tee it off of where the external oil filter would be. It's the freaking oil pan. I like Mopars, but you know another reason Mopars are stupid? The rear steer. You can never run a decent freaking oil pan because the cars are rear steer. Stupid Mopars. Why were the Chrysler engineers not thinking 55 years ahead of time, knowing that guys are going to want to put a NASCAR transmission in their '69 Dodge Charger? Now, 55 years later, going to have to cut more shit out to make it fit. Or, I think what I may end up having to do is, they've got this extension plate on here. So that bracket extends the shift linkage way back. And what it did is it offset this guy over by probably an inch. And if you look, my yoke, my drive shaft yoke, is hitting that freaking, the bolts for that extension plate. Or the extension bracket. So I can eliminate that issue by moving this guy back here onto the transmission where it's supposed to be. And then that will move my shifter mechanism forward, and the drive shaft or the transmission is sitting here square. So when this comes over, these rods are going to hit my torsion support. So, but by moving this over and in, it might fix the yoke, it might fix the tunnel, and it might fix the rods hitting this. But wait, there's more. Oil pan. I can't even really get this freaking engine in the car mocked up because the oil pan is hitting the motor mount and the K-frame. But wait, there's more. That top end feed, the pressure line is hitting the firewall. But wait, we will see if there's more. We're going to yank it back out, fix those issues, and then try and stuff it back in. Extension plate, no mas. But now I need to shorten each one of these rods by 5 inches. So I'm gonna go ahead and remove those, cut 5 inches off of them, and re-tap it. So that way my shift linkage will be functional once again. No, I didn't change the channel on you. This is still 69 Daytona. Well, okay, temporarily 69 500 build, but it will be a Daytona. So I sold the engine out of Jenny. You know, this car is going to get parted out. We're going to pillage pieces from it, and then, well, you know, it's lived its course. But we're going to rob the seat out of it. I need the handle for the master kill switch. You know, we need the, oh, Derek just took the power steering reservoir off. So there's a couple little miscellaneous things we're going to rob off of Jenny for my stock car. That's why we hauled it back here. And so at least I got all my monies back out of the car, you know, by selling the engine. And now I still have all kinds of goodies I can pillage from the car. So, worked out good. As for the engine going in the 500 temporarily. I still don't have my correct oil pan. When is it going to get here? I don't know. It needs to get here soon because I can't wait till the last minute for this freaking oil pan to show up. So may end up modifying this oil pan and making it work with what I've got, which is going to be kind of a pain in the ass to make it the rear steer work with a rear sump. So I don't know. May end up just hole sawing this thing and welding an aluminum tube in there for the drag link to go in and out of. Got to do something. But I still got to get this thing in the car and get everything mocked up. So last night I shortened the shift linkage. I massaged the oil pan so that way this motor mount will actually fit in there, and hopefully the oil pan will clear the K-frame because it was kind of hitting right. You know what, I'm just gonna go ahead and massage that a little bit more right in this area. We just need to get the engine in the car and check the fitment and any other issues we're going to have. So I think we can go ahead and try and stuff it back in this morning. Push it. All right, down. The engine and transmission is sitting in the Daytona acceptably. Now, I would really like to shove the engine to the left because these Mopars, another stupid thing about Mopars, the engine is to the right about 1.5 inches. If we were doing right-handers, that would be great. But that's all down the road stuff. I'm happy the engine and transmission is sitting in the car. The shifter is in a good spot. That's actually going to be really good. So I'll be able to box all that in to the trans tunnel. But before I can relieve the jack stand holding up the transmission, I need to make a cross member. You guys have not spent a lot of time underneath this stock car, racing car. Let me give you a scope here. Engine, transmission sitting in it. That is a major accomplishment. Another accomplishment to actually make it to the engine and transmission can mount to it is the transmission cross member. So I got lucky. I had a bunch of these made back, several years ago, and I had one pair left. So I'm going to use these to make a mount that will attach to the transmission. I'm going to make it solid because the front motor mounts are solid, and so I'm going to go ahead and make the rear motor mount solid. So that way it combolates everything and makes everything super solid and rigid and nice. So, bracketry time. Transmission cross member, check. And I've decided to only use one of the cross member brackets because it's only holding it up. It's not like it needs to control it back and forth. That's what the front motor mounts are, and it's 3/16 plate, which is triple what the original bracket would have been. So to save weight, I'm like, you know what, I'm just gonna use one, and simplicity. I still need to re-angle this upper ball joint, but another task is getting the starter in here, because then we're going to see if those headers I got will in fact fit this car. If they don't, I'm going to have to make them fit. Luckily these headers come apart in 4 pieces. Each tube comes apart. Well, I would have said each tube, but these two are welded together. So I'm actually trying the individual tubes at once. This one fit perfectly fine, the farthest forward one. This one is hitting the frame. So I've kind of heated up and dented the frame down there real quick. Right there. But just not getting enough. So I'm going to mark the header and we are going to dyno dent these headers. Alright, I got that last one to go in, but I think the issue is going to be this guy. So well, not too bad. There's no way in hell. This is going to take some plasmaing. This is not going to be heated up and denting. Some of the shock tower is going to have to go. Fist bump, Derek. You didn't even get the fist bump on camera?
Yeah, I did here.
Oh, you fail. You just turned the camera that way again. Derek only functions one part of his brain. Don't ask him to do two things. This sucks. This driver's side header is going to take a lot of work. Not one tube is going to go in. Well, one tube will go in with just one dent. We got this, the first header tube right here. And it's really cool. You know, it forms in, tucks tight to the block, wraps around the oil pan. You know, it goes under the starter. It actually is pretty nice. And then we got this guy here that rides along next to it. It's all cool and spiffy, but it's in the way of the steering shaft. And then these two guys here, not a chance in hell this is going to fit. Not only is it these two tubes here right in line with the torsion bar, but it's also in the way of the steering shaft. We're gonna have to do some thunking on trying to make this thing work. So just taking it one tube at a time. So far I've cut this tube from the flange and then been shortening both this side and that side and kind of bending this pipe in closer to the block to clear the steering shaft. So soon I will have two tubes that will work and just need to have two more. Getting serial now, pulling out all the bends I can find, and I still have a tote halfway full of universal bends and cut up headers to try and make this thing work. Ah, look like crap for the wind. So it's a little too windy now. The wind had picked up this evening, so not a whole lot of welding can be done. Like, right now it's not bad. Give it 10 seconds. There it is. And that's why we can't do any welding. As soon as I start pulling the trigger, it'll just start blowing all my gas away and welds will look like shit. So we're gonna do things that don't have to rely on gas. Good morning. It is actually a pretty decent day today. Like, I can get some welding done. There's just a real slight breeze. It's nice and sunny and pretty calm. So today is going to be a happening day. I stayed up last night and got a few things done. I got the fuel pump on, which I had to reclock it. I mounted my oil filter relocator right there, which is ended up going through the firewall and down to there. We got the power steering reservoir mounted. And I started thinking about how I'm going to do the trans tunnel, but trans tunnel will not keep it from driving. So I was like, you know what, we're going to save that for later. I need to make this thing run and drive, and it still needs a radiator. So last night I kind of mocked up my radiator, and let me show you this thing. Now, some of you guys will be like, you put the oil filter inside the car? That is stupid. Let me explain to you why that is not, in fact, stupid. So normally you'll mount your oil filter here, or you'll mount it here. And I don't want to mount it back here because of heat and up high, or vice versa. There's everywhere up front would require lots of hosage. And when you get into wrecks, metal crunches and smashes, and you know, this whole area gets crushed in, this gets crushed. You'd be surprised how much damage can happen on a front clip when you get into a wreck, hit the wall, whatever. And oil filters are super fragile. It's just sheet metal. So the slightest puncture will then squirt oil everywhere. And it is in fact much safer right there than it is in front. I mean, do you want to put your ass sitting next to the engine while it's racing and crashing, or do you want to put your ass right here? Same thing. I know a cold case is cool, Bolt, but come on, you got to get out of the way of the box. We got to display this cool thing. Yep, I got me a cold case radiator because we're going extreme racing, and so I hit up cold case and I was like, 69 Charger Daytona racing car. I was like, I need a radiator, and they're like, sure. Do you want a B-body radiator? I'm like, no. This is what my plan. See, Chargers and B-bodies, they have a tall, skinny radiator. I want a short, squatty body radiator. So this is intended for a G body. Yes, like a G body, like 80s, Monte Carlo, Regal, whatever. And so here's my plan. Hear me out. And I'm glad Cold Case was able to help me out on this, because this is going to work perfect. See? Look at that. Real wide, low profile radiator. So even at low speeds, like whatever track I go to, slow corner speed, the width of that radiator is really going to help with the cooling. And then the height of the radiator, because it's shorter, that's lower center of gravity. So this is going to work out perfectly. And that's why I had notched my frame, or that's why I cut my frame rails shorter, to accommodate the extra wide radiator. That's going to work out perfectly. And I've also got the shroud and electric fans, because, you know, when we're having to run 2 barrels, oh wait, I don't. I get to run a 4-barrel because of the wheelbase of the car. But even it's a small 4-barrel. And Circle Track guys are always trying to squeeze as much horsepower as we physically can with the restrictions that we got. And so the electric fans are going to work out perfectly. I really need to put a larger pulley on here, but I'm going to end up getting rid of this alternator eventually and going to a lightweight, smaller race alternator, because I think we're going to end up smoking this guy. Which that crank pulley is going to multiply this probably 3 to 1. So if I'm spending 6,500, that pulley might be spinning like, 17,000 or in that range. For a long period of time, I don't think that alternator is going to do the job. But you know what is going to do the job? This badass radiator. So let me go ahead and start fabbing up some brackets and get this thing in the car and get it mounted and functional. So being on the time crunch I really am in on building this car.
Hi, Chris.
Yeah, I get this guy that shows up and completely wastes an entire, mid-afternoon?
Yeah.
So thanks to all the bullshitting and him showing me this fine piece of automotive dumpery, which he's now borrowing my tools to work on.
Yeah.
And creating an eyesore on my HOA neighborhood. But actually, technically, that's a bigger eyesore. But yeah. But anyway, thanks for wasting my day. Now
You bet, buddy.
I got to get back to building a race car.
I'll be back
Come on,
tomorrow.
Derek. Oh shit. Yep, trans tunnel is completely done. Well, I don't know about completely, but I'm gonna see if I can't slide by with just leaving the shifter hole as is. Otherwise, I got to make a raised pedestal that's flat so I can put a shift boot. So I'm gonna see if I can't just snooker my way through like that, and I'll just kind of put some crappy little boot over it. But now that the trans tunnel is done, I can actually put the seat in, and the trans tunnel won't be in my way. So go ahead and slap the seat in here, start bolting in place, get the leg braces, the head brace, all that on, and then I can start putting my belts on. It's not as easy to get in the car when it's up in the air and you're trying to not move the seat. But let's go ahead and check out this. this will work. Oh yeah, the seat is permanently mounted. I got the upholstery back on it. The seat belts are hooked up and it fits me most gooder. You might be seeing these long ass leg braces and being like, what the hell? He does not need those, but yes I do. Because, you know, I got long legs. And so when they're bunched up, you don't want them sitting in there going like this. So that's why these guys are here, is to keep my legs under control. Because the less your body is moving around in a race car, the more control you have of that there race car. But the seat is done, and we are now moving on to other things. I have pillaged all my radiator hoses. I dug through my tote a bunch of hoses and cut up pieces, and I found some stuff that's going to work. So I've got this big block radiator hose attached to this random piece right here that I'm going to cut right in the middle and put this my coupler. So I'm going to rob this guy off of here, and that's what's going to connect the two. And then the upper hose, just randomly happened to find one of these long slinky dink, you know, donkey things, and that will work perfectly to go from my upper hose from the radiator to the thermostat housing. So I didn't have to buy any hoses. That is a plus. I also dug through all my belts. So, you know, when you're a car guy and you're building a bunch of cars, you got random hoses, random belts, you got a lot of random leftover crap. Other issues, and I think I have figured this out. So this is the carburetor that Mr. Tall John set up for me. Since I'm running 117-inch wheelbase, I get to be lucky enough to run all the barrels when the other guys, all them Chevy guys, are stuck with 2 barrels because they got shorter wheelbase. Well, crappy thing about the intake manifold that is on this, which has been modified for racing, obviously. They cut that big old booger out and then epoxied it. So this has had some work done to it for racing, but it's still a cast iron shitty intake manifold. Not enough time to change it or even worry about it. So I was like, you know what, screw it. We're gonna put that right there and put this on top of that. But this has like the Carter bolt pattern. Not gonna work for that Holly. Or no, this is thermoquad, I think. Yeah, thermoquad, right, Derek?
Yeah.
Yeah. So thermoquad bolt pattern. But luckily the spacer I have here has both patterns on it. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna countersink the holes for the thermoquad pattern, and then I'm going to helicoil the Holly bolt pattern, the 4150 flange bolt pattern, so that way this gets bolted to this, and then the carburetor can then bolt to the adapter. Fixes that, and I don't have to buy anything. Just got back from running our errands. We picked up some goodies from the parts store. We got oil, we got gaskets. I got my metal that I need, but in order to start making all the bracketry and doohickeys to hold this front clip up, I gotta mock up the front clip. So I dragged one of my fenders over here. I'm gonna get the other fender, we're gonna lay them in place, and we're gonna try and add a little bit of rake to that front end, get a little bit more aerodynamics on here.
Woke up this morning, put on my slippers, walked in the kitchen and died. And oh, what a feeling when my soul went through the ceiling and on up into heaven I did ride. When I got out, it said, John, it happened this way. You slipped upon the floor and hit your head. And all the angels say just before you passed away, these were the very last words that you said. Please don't bury me down in the cocoa ground. No, I'm gonna have them cut me up, pass me all around. Throw my body in a hurricane and the blinds can have my eyes. And the left can take both of my ears, but they don't mind a thing. Milwaukee if they run out of beer. Put my socks in a cedar box, just get 'em out of here.
work
Venus
mucho
and
gooder.
Milo can have my arms. Look out, I've got your nose. Sell my heart to the junk man and give my love to Rose. But please don't bury me down in that cocoa ground. No, until I have them cut me up, pass me all around. Oh, my plane in a hurricane, and the blind can have my eyes, and the deaf can take both my ears and build my side.
Alright, we are perfectly square here. Now we can actually start making some racing. Okay, that's good. Can you hurry up as I'm welding?
Hey, I need that.
I'm
When you're
working
done.
I'm working on it.
Okay.
Okay.
You totally understand leak trash in your
All right, Derek. We actually have fenders that are mounted to a body without a ratchet strap or clamps.
How are you going to get through tech without a ratchet strap on that? There is a different out here.
Well, now I got to figure out how to put a strap back on. Oh wait, that didn't sound right.
Oh.
Oh yeah. That did not. we'll edit that part out.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. All right. Dalton needs the welder because he's brought some junk here that needs to have some seats welded in. So I have to push to my side my more important project to work on his non-important project.
More important project.
So I don't know how those guys suckered me into it, but I'm having to weld on their car too. So not only do I have to stop using the welder on my car, but now I have to use the welder on their car. So I think they're mocking shit up right now. So I think I'm gonna go ahead and start running some triangulation braces and making it all stronger. But technically, the nose is square, and the front ear of the K-frame, so right at this point, I have these fenders an inch lower than the factory fenders on a Charger. So adding a little bit of that rakeness to it to make it more aerodynamic and speed. Body braces. Whoa. 2 days. Got to be done in 2 days, and I still have to pull the motor out and modify the oil pan, put the clutch in it, put the drive shaft in it, finish all the front body, wire and plumb the car. 2 days. Luckily, Daryl will be here today. He's going to tackle a lot of the plumbing, and so I'm going to have him do the plumbing on the engine first, so then I can pull the engine out and try and modify the oil pan, because who knows where the hell the oil pan I ordered is at. I need to do the tracking, but then that takes time away from working. So right now, it is looking bitchin'. It is freaking awesome. Like, I don't know, you guys, the camera just doesn't do it justice when you just stand back and look at this thing. Right here on the fenders is 1 inch lower than the general. So I did put a little bit of rake in this nose, and at that point it is 1 inch lower. So over here it might be 1.25 inches, 1.5 inches lower than stock, which is still more gooders. And I will still have just enough tire clearance to where I don't have to put a stupid looking Resto Mod tire hump there. That is so stupid looking. Don't want to do that, but I will eventually have my gigantic fender louver scoop right here, like a Daytona. When I get the Daytona nose and wing on it, I'll go ahead and make those. But for right now, necessities. So, set the hood on it, make the hood pin mounts, probably make like a little channel here so the hood can sit on top of, maybe. Probably like a little L brace, a couple of them, just so that way the hood doesn't sink down. Ugh, tons of work. All right, just like the trunk, my hood holder upper doohickeys are in place. I need to see if the hood will close though, so this will be the first go at it. That pushes in, that pushes in. Not interfering with anything. Aha! That looks excellent. Let me show the peoples how cool this looks inside there. Look at that. Go ahead and open the hood, Derek. Pow! Let there be light. Then you just pop that, and bam! NASCAR. Another major piece of the puzzle. Bam! The drive shaft just picked it up. Whoa! Gotta do a balancing act here. Mopars have super long drive shafts to go with that super long wheelbase. But, yep, Dan's driveline just whipped this up for me in 2 days. Actually, 1 day. He made it for me in 1 day real quick because he knew this was a crunch. Man, my vocabulary is just completely ass backwards today. But, hopefully I don't put the drive shaft in backwards. Need to get this in the car so that way I can set my pinion angle and weld the purchase and call that portion done. I ordered some 1-inch lowering blocks. Haha, balancing act. I ordered some 1-inch lowering blocks, and so I'm hoping those will show up too, because, I mean, have you seen the front of this car? This looks amazing. Oh, Derek, this looks bitchin'.
Yeah.
So, that is full droop. That is all the way down. When this car compresses, this tire is only going to be like, about 1 inch from the bottom of the fender, which is perfect because I want that K-frame to go on the ground. Just barely kiss it, and then we'll raise it up slightly. But lowered front ends are more aerodynamics. More air over the car means less air under the car trying to lift it up in the air. All right, drive shaft. You know, Brick is probably watching this and hearing every clunk and banging going. He's ruining my paint job on my drive shaft. Yes, I am. Oh. You know what else is new? This creeper. So I hit up my Cornwell rep, John, and I was like, dude, I need a real creeper, like a good one. And this one here, even with a drive shaft on top of me, on my face, it's still like I'm laying on a fluffy cloud. I could take a nap. But I can't. I got work to do. Airplane's always ruining my scene, but I can set my pinion angle now. The only thing I don't like is, like, look at this. That is bitchin'. That is full droop, and this tire is gonna come up and only be like maybe 1 inch from the top, the bottom of that fender. That is mucho goodo. This tire here, that is on the suspension already with weight in it. So I had ordered ride height blocks. They just haven't shown up yet. I'm hoping it shows up, but I can get the pinion angle close enough. And that, look, this is with the leaf spring already flipped, the hanger already flipped. That's actually an aftermarket hanger, and it's already flipped to where the leaf is touching the rear seat pan. And the leaf is already raised in the back, way higher than it would have been factory. Factory would have been, that leaf spring would have been actually about right here. So that's way higher. I just want 1 more inch will be better. And so that'll, I don't know. We may end up, but you know what? These leaf springs are 50 freaking years old. They've got a ton of arch to them. They've got, you know, probably more spring rate than we even want. This is just get it out there on the track, run some laps, shake it down, have some fun, and say I ran Irwindale's last race. Then after that we can tear it down and make it full race car. Okay, so we got the transmission raised up, and the pinion or the driveline angle is satisfactory, like the engine angle, and it's down to 2 degrees. It was like almost 3, so now it's 2, which I can deal with. The driveline angle is 2.5 degrees downhill, but once we get the 1 inch spacers on the leaf springs, that will fix that. So now I just need to set my pinion angle, and I will. Hi, Bolt. I know that voice. Oh, and those sneakers. Daryl has showed up. He's gonna help do all the plumbing and stuff.
Check this out.
Oh, you brought goodies.
I brought all kinds of Red Horse
Oh,
goodies.
we brought all kinds of goodies.
It's like Christmas.
What's Red Horse gonna think about you dumping all their fittings on the ground?
It's quality, it's fine.
Oh, okay. It's in the plastic packing.
It's in the
Yes,
plastic
they're fine, yeah. So Daryl, you guys might know this guy by spinning out the General Lee, doing autocrossing, and welding exhaust system onto the General Lee. He's been around the block a few times. Oh, we have to congratulate him. He has a new addition to the family.
Oh, yes.
He is the new proud owner of a 1970 Dodge Charger. So, slow clap. I have to hold the camera with my other hand. But yeah, he is now part of the Charger community. After driving mine, he's like, I need one.
And I bought one.
You got lucky, right? Someone just happened to walk into the shop. It's like, hey, I got one in my backyard.
Yeah, and I'm like, really? And it's 10 minutes away.
Yeah.
That never happens. Soft jaws, braided cables.
All kinds of prettiness. Look at this.
10,
All these
dash
goodies.
10. Oh. They gave you a t-shirt.
Ooh, I like shirts. Dude, perfect aim on that.
I mean, Red Horse Performance bringing fast things to life.
Now let's see if he's as good as throwing t-shirts as he is as throwing fittings on my car. We've got to get this thing plumbed, and we've got to get it race ready because we have 2 days. How many days, Derek? You can count.
2 days.
There we go. We have 2 days. Not all together doesn't equal 6. No, still 2. But he's going to start. Where are you going to start on this thing?
I'm going to start.
Oh, yeah, start on the engine side.
Engine side.
Yeah, because bad news, I still do not have the oil pan. I don't know if they're back ordered or what. I haven't done the tracking number on it. You know what's going to happen as soon as I get this pan modified, then the other one's going to show up, but it'll be too late. So I'm going to take this, when we get this thing plumbed, we have to pull this engine back out, put it on a stand, flip it upside down. I have to then modify the oil pan so it will work with my steering, weld it all up, flip it back over, bolt a clutch to it, and then drop it back in. And how many days do we have? 2.
We have a long way to go and a short time to get there.
It's a good thing I'm not paying this guy.
We feed the dash 10 through the firewall. Derek, can you hold that for me right there, please?
Yeah.
And I'll go to the inside. I'm going to put this dash 10 bulkhead fitting in through the firewall because it's way better than passing hoses through where they could chafe. And after we get this in, we'll mock up the hoses to go to the remote oil filter. And then we'll plumb all the stuff on the engine side. And Chris can get the engine back out to modify that oil pan.
That sounds all way too technical. Just say this goes to that and that goes to this, and we'll make the whole thingy work.
And then goes vroom.
There you go. Load it down. 2.6 and 0 gives me 2.6 degrees of pinion angle, and when I put the 1-inch ride height blocks on there, that's going to take some of that away even more. Probably drop down to like 2.3, which I'm going with. Time to burn it in. So I have never actually used these things to cut hoses with. I've always just used the, angle grinder with a cutoff wheel.
Oh, no, no.
So
Put in the center.
Oh, on your finger?
No, not on this.
Oh.
Is this like a truss fall?
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. Center. The other center. Close enough. Now snap it.
Snap it.
Snap it.
3, 2, 1. Is that it? Oh, wow. And it's still round? Not bad. Ooh, guess what?
What?
Drive line, leaf spring purchase, done. Can I cross anything off that you've done yet?
No, I'm still plumbing the car. No. But the only thing left is everything else.
Oh, that's it?
That's it.
Oh, we're golden. Now, is that guaranteed not to leak?
It's got the taillight warranty.
Are you kidding me? I don't even have taillights. So there's no warranty, basically. See that? If only you guys could see all the bullshitting that has happened when the camera's off.
Oh, lots of it.
YouTube won't allow that. But Daryl has it looking mighty pretty under there. Oh wait, let me clarify that. It's what's on the car is pretty, not what's under the car.
You mean who's putting the stuff on that looks pretty?
Daryl's probably like, why am I here again?
Why did I fly across the country?
Why am I getting picked on when I'm working on this guy's car?
Poor decisions.
Hey, you weren't allowed to speak.
Oh.
I am the smartest man alive, or at least within a 50-foot radius. No offense, Dad. But this guy is going to work perfectly. So this is my homemade adapter. I helicoiled the 4150 flange, so I have my studs, and then I I drilled out and recessed so that way I can countersink those guys in there. So then this bolts to the intake, and then my carburetor then bolts to that. Geniusness. I hope none of my geniusness radiates onto these other guys. hours later, Daryl had finished the oil plumbing. Yes, you guys. I'm getting ready to start doing my throttle linkage. So I got my sleeve. I just need to make sure it's the correct length. I'll have to put some bends in it too. But by tonight, I will be able to sit in the car and pretend go, wah, wah, wah. So I think this guy's gonna work here. What the? It was a kit.
Oh, as a kit?
Yeah. So this guy
That guy.
is supposed to thread into this guy, not push in.
It's not one of those new push-in deals?
No. I do, however, have some more threaded rod. I'll have to go dig through some totes, but I do have some. And I see you've already got a beer in your hand, and I am hungry. We don't care about Derek, but I'm hungry. You got beer. I want a beer. So I think we're going to go get some food and call it a break for a minute, and then come back and I will figure out this throttle linkage, and then hopefully you move on to something else.
Yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and do the fuel system.
Okay. All right. Well, we will see you back in like 13 minutos. Or was it? Did I say mentos or minutos?
You said
Mentos.
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 Mentos?
Yeah,
Mentos. Minties.
Minty?
Whatever.
Minty?
Whatever. Yeah. It's getting late. Days left till race day. 0. It is race day. Last time you saw us, it was what, Derek? 3:50 in the morning, 3:30 in the morning. This is my first time seeing this car out in the daylight, being able to walk around it. Oh wow, and that strap almost fell off. I gotta say, the daylight does not disappoint. Absolutely.